weekend, so everybody's
Okay,
amped up.
we're going live.
Awesome.
Okay, yeah, yes, no, that makes sense. Okay, let me go ahead and here we go. We are live in a minute early. Where are we? There we are. All right, fantastic. Welcome back, everyone, to Everything Horses and More. You know who I am, your host, Caroline Best of the Tao of Horsemanship, and you know who my lovely co-host is, Lydia Primavera. Hi, Lydia. Welcome back. I slipped in a quick podcast with little Sarah last week, only because Sarah she's in school, she can't do live podcasts. So we did one after school about lunging. So that's the latest one that's up there. And just slipped that in for her thesis project. And today, this is part 4 of a continued series about raising, developing, training young horses, and specifically age-appropriate training. For those of you that'll be joining this podcast, whether it's on YouTube live or in the podcast directories, I started this conversation, this series back in, 3 years ago, 2020. And so I have part 1 and part 2 podcasts back in 2020 that you can find in, the directories under Everything Horses and More, and starting young horses, training young horses, age appropriate training. And then last month I did part 3, where I dived in a little bit deeper, articulated myself a little bit more. And plus, over the years, I've been getting emails, continue to get stuff all the time, and comments and questions. So I was able to give a little bit more information, more specifics in part 3. And then today, part 4 is specifically going to be about weanlings and baby horses and imprinting. So Lydia is going to have some great stuff to add on that with her experience imprinting falcons and goats, mammals. Birds are not mammals. Bird's a mammal, right? No.
Feathers.
Feathers. Yeah, I didn't think so.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, I'm a little foggy this morning. I'm just a little tired. Yeah. So one of the cool things about this podcast too is we're going to have an opportunity, or at least I'll be talking to or about one of my students, Mette, and she's going to join us. Hi, Becky. Thanks. Mette is going to join us at some point, but I am going to be talking about her experience recently. I think little Frigga, her Icelandic filly, was born sometime last year, and she's been posting daily, weekly videos on imprinting Frigga and the mother and the herd. And you all can find Mette's story with Frigga, Frigga, on youtube.com/the @Lizzie's Horses, LIZZYS horses. So that's youtube.com/@Lizzie's Horses. And they've been documenting, raising this baby and just the whole organic, natural process. And it's really important. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we dive into weanlings. I think for me, as a professional, and a teacher, I want to try and simplify a lot of stuff, because there's a lot of dogma out there. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of different ways in which professionals are handling weanlings or advising. Now, I have a ton. I think I printed out 8 pages. Lydia has it too, of all the basically the case studies that I've researched on the different talking points that do come up in, I think, people that are, whether you're a breeder, or a lot of my students, they'll get the mom, and the mom will have a baby. What do I do with the baby? I've been told to do this, X, Y, and Z. And I think when you're in that situation, for starters, if you have the dam, the mama horse, and she's given birth and it's your baby now, so you've got the mom and the baby. This is what's so great about Mete's story and the availability of these YouTube videos, because I can't give you a better, oh my gosh, case study or documentary than Mete, is giving all of us on how to lovingly, gently, organically, naturally, imprint a young foal, whether it's a colt or a filly. It's a foal, just generalizes it. So take a look at that. I haven't had the opportunity to raise a baby. However, I've had a lot of weanlings that I have raised. And there's a couple of points or a couple of issues that happens with most weanlings. And that's where I'm going to bring in some of these case studies and I've had these issues myself. And honestly, I think every student I've had that's had a weanling under the age of 1 is a weanling, has had these similar issues. And some of them are, buddy sour. The baby is, doesn't want to be alone. And that is natural. And we're going to talk about how to remedy that. So a lot of us get these 5, 6, 7, 8-month-olds. And the reason why they're weaned so young, and I say so young, it's normal practice to wean a baby from its mom around the age of 5 or 6 months. And that to me is a lot of dogma, and it's inappropriate, and it's a shame. And we got caught up in this, normalizing this, basically due to breeding practices, because horses are expensive, and they want to take these babies away as soon as possible because they're going to breed the mother again, or they're going to be selling the baby. And it's wrong. So the one thing I want to get straight with everyone is, if you've studied wild horses like I have, and even healthy domesticated herds and environments where there's at least 3 brood mares and foals, they will naturally wean themselves within a year or so. Babies will they'll only get so much nutrients from their mom's milk the first few months. And it's the most important. And, that's why if you get an orphan foal, oh my gosh, it can be really scary. Because right away, as soon as that baby foal starts to suckle, the moment it's born, within hours, it needs to get up and it needs to suckle. And it needs to suckle for many reasons. The most fascinating is the way, and I'm not going to say this correctly, the scientific terminology for it, but you can look it up. For me, the most fascinating aspect of why a baby foal has to suckle immediately, and if it loses its dam, it can lose a lot of its nervous system, its neurological function. And so there's so many pieces that happen through the motor skills that basically stimulate the nervous system, that stimulates the cognitive and the neurological aspects of these babies. So it's not just the nutrients that are so important. And that's number one, not to mention number two, it's a bonding. It's all about bonding and forming these really deep bonds with their mother is so important, like it is for us, like it is for most mammals. Highly intelligent or socially intelligent, or emotionally intelligent species need that level of connection. Again, the science behind all of that is it's part of the nervous system. It's part of how it is hardwired and connected to the brain. Cognitive development relies, even for human babies, there's tons of research on it. Cognitive development can be stunted in orphan human babies if they don't get their bonding. So bonding is really important. And the first way that a baby horse bonds is starting to suckle. And then of course, you're hoping that the mother is affectionate, not just licking off the placenta and cleaning the baby and stimulating the baby that way, but you hope that the mother has really good bonding skills, which is innate. But again, this is the problem that most people have, is so much of this has been normalized, meaning we don't get to see a healthy, wild herd of horses and study them, or healthy domesticated herd of horses and study them. We just see, we only know what we experience. And most of our domesticated horses are so unhealthy, emotionally unbalanced and socially crippled. And so my little Blue, when he came to me as a weanling at 8 months old, that was your perfect example. My Blue, who's 5 now, his mother was a nut job. It's not her fault. I'm not trying to criticize. I don't mean to criticize her and judge her. And I don't mean that with any animosity towards the mare, but she was a nut job, you guys. She was a brood mare for racing thoroughbred bloodlines. For whatever reason, she had all sorts of displaced behaviors and tons of anxiety, which she transferred to Blue. And not only did she transfer a lot of those anxieties to Blue, because the babies learn from their mothers, period, just like we do, not the father. The babies are imprinted by their mothers. And so that's another thing we have to really take into consideration. So he became a nervous.
Too, doesn't he?
What, hon?
He has allergies too, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. So he became, which he's outgrowing, but he was a nervous wreck, anxious, diarrhea, cribbing because of his mom. And the worst part about it is his mother did not socialize him. So she was with a group. There were 3 brood mares, 3 dams with their foals. And not only did she not touch him and groom him, she was not affectionate with him. He did suckle, but that was it. She wouldn't allow him to play with any of the babies or be around the other brood mares. And so he was, I can't even imagine the level of anxiety here. His mother is constantly running up and down the fence line, just nuts, just anxious, not just buddy sour, because she's got other, horses with her, but she can't be self-regulated. So think about her nervous system is fried, and he's learning from his mother. And so, all of that was taken into consideration when he came here. And that's why he came here, to see if I could fix him so his previous owner could sell him. I ended up getting him. But that is one of the first things I did. Is I'm like, okay, I've got a really healthy herd of horses, especially my geldings. So I stuck him with Smokey. He was still alive at the time. And, Blue had food aggression, horrible food aggression, very possessive and protective of his food. I don't know if he learned that from his mother. I didn't ask. Maybe I did. I don't remember, but he was underweight. He was a bloated baby. He was a wormy baby, which is normal for weanlings. It's normal for them to eat manure because they're always trying to get the natural bacteria, for their gut. So being wormy is normal. Being having a lot of diarrhea, unfortunately, is normal. So he had to go on the big dewormer. I can't remember the name of that right now. And it was just a mess. So Smokey helped him a lot. And of course, he was constantly around a herd of horses that was really calm and older and very sweet with him, and taught him the things that his mother wouldn't teach him, such as socialization and all the things that come with socialization. They're so important to babies. And I'm bringing this experience up because, again, like most of us, me included, we buy these babies, or we rescue these babies, or we inherit these babies. What do we do with these babies? And if we don't do the things I'm talking about, this is the beginning of mayhem for you and this horse. This horse doesn't know how, if the horse doesn't know how to socialize, if the horse has all these anxieties, it feels like it doesn't fit in or belong, and it can't bond. Blue had all of these issues. He couldn't bond. He became extremely attached to Smokey and Lovey, which he still is very attached to, which is fine. He's getting better. Like, I would not separate him from Lovey until recently. He's 5. He's 5 as of March of this year. I would not separate him until this year, really. I started putting him out with the boys now. He's completely separated. As of a few weeks ago, Lovey goes out for a few hours a day with everybody. The mares go out, but then Sundance and Lovey are in their own pasture and wing and stalls because they eat differently. They get fed all the time, and the boys don't need that. And Blue's out with the other. There's four of them. So he didn't. All of this creates anxiety, and it's really important to educate ourselves and that's what I'm hoping to do with this podcast. Like, what do these young horses need? And if you can't give them another horse that's healthy, that they can learn from, because they do learn from each other, then what can you do? And, again, what's critical, that you got to know that the babies are going to come with worms, 99% of them, they come with ulcers, in the 90 percentile. And a lot of it's food oriented. Ulcers are food oriented, or caused by food, as well as stress, and being weaned is one of the big issues. And so how do we help these babies regulate and get back into, their natural instincts of bonding and socializing and feeling safe and comfortable? So I also want to bring up, so I've got some topic talking points here, for just basic weaning practices, or weanlings. So foals learn everything from their dams, their moms, and their herd environment, good, bad, and the ugly, including what to fear, natural habituation, which is what I just discussed with Blue and his mom. Pecking order only exists in young horses. It does not exist in older horses. That's another big myth and dogma I want to put out there. I'm not saying that I have not met, because I have met quite a few older horses that definitely were in a pecking order. What's the word I want to say? Challenge with their human. And that's a shame, because that just tells me that this older horse never learned to be socialized, or never understood socialization. And it also tells me that the human is not where they need to be to establish hierarchy, or to establish, which to me is a level of leadership, or establish a level of partnership, and both go hand in hand. I'm not here to teach you to be a leader all the time with your horse, or a partner all the time with your horse. It's both. You got to figure out when you need to be both, and it can switch like a flip of a switch. It can change instantaneously. Yes.
I want to bring up one thing right now, and that is for everybody to think about. There's no better teacher than a mother horse to a horse. Like, humans don't teach horses how to be horses, and humans don't teach dogs how to be dogs, and humans don't teach falcons how to be falcons. Or I can't teach a goat how to be a goat, right? But I need that help. I don't,
yes,
if I'm to do this on my own, I really need that help, because
we really
I
need to
don't
be
fly.
mindful of that. Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't fly, for one.
It's also, we're talking about intelligent species. Excellent point, Lydia. Excellent. Intelligent species. So horses are intelligent. We know falcons are intelligent. Dogs are intelligent. They're going to pick up the mannerisms and expressions of their human. And so, I talk about this in previous podcasts. Look at the oldest history that we have of the horse. We have lots of history with the cave paintings, but the point I'm making is the oldest history that we have of the horse living with humans as a family member is in two specific breeds. One is a Gypsy Vanner, which started in, I think, Ireland, not Scotland. I think it's Ireland. And the other is the Arabian horse. So these horses were family members for all the reasons that you can think of. And to me, that is one of the reasons why Arabians, and I've had plenty of Arabs, are so freaking smart, is because when you look at the bloodlines, especially the bloodlines, and I had Kima Sabi great-granddaughter Gracie, an Egyptian Arabian, that I ended up selling to one of my students years ago because I couldn't bring 4 horses to Florida. But I raised Gracie from a baby and sold her when I think she was 5 at the time. The point I'm making is the intelligence is, think about this, they're living generation after generation. The horses and their offspring and their family unit are living with humans. They are going to pick up like nobody's business. They're going to learn. I mean, this is just science, and research, from primates and monkeys, how much they pick up with sign language and learning mannerisms, and horses are so intelligent, especially socially and emotionally. So that's a great point that Lydia brings up. If you're going to be raising this baby, there's, you're not a horse, but you do need to teach it some of the intrinsic things that it may not have learned from its mother, because it was taken away so soon. And you don't always know its mother. You don't always know, like, look at Blue. Look at what if his former owner had given Blue, just said, somebody take Blue, I just can't handle it, take Blue. And you don't realize, you see this cute little thoroughbred baby, and you take him and he's a mess. And you're like, what the heck? Where did this come from? You'd have no idea that it came from his mother, and both his horse mom and his human mom created a lot of stress too, unbeknownst to his human mom. She didn't mean to create the stress, but her lack of education and doing all the wrong things that other people were telling her, she contributed to Blue being even more anxious and more worried and distrustful with people. So, bonding is critical with these babies. They need a lot of time. And if you're the only thing this baby has, you can't just leave it alone by itself. Get it a goat, get it a donkey. It needs something some other animal, not just a dog or a cat, that it can form a herd with and socialize, and hopefully, at least with a donkey, maybe even, pick up the grooming, which is huge for bonding. One of the points I want to make too, and I do this with all of my horses, and their adults, is I groom with my hands and my fingernails. And, I have grooming tools, absolutely, but I prefer to really get in there and rub them, feel them, and massage them and groom them with my fingernails, especially in the areas that I know are going to stimulate the most bonding connection and response. And that's always around the 8th chakra, the brachia chakra, which is, in all mammals, the brachia chakra for relationship. Its purpose is connecting in deep relationship and bonds, is the shoulder area, the wither area above the shoulder. So it can be your cat. Notice how your cats love it back here, your dogs love it back here, and your horses around their wither area. But it's a huge trust issue too. How many cats have you rescued, dogs or horses, that didn't trust you and didn't want you touching them? For a horse, it's in their blind zone. And same for a dog or a cat. They have to turn their head to see your hand back there in their blind spot. And so if you have a cat or a dog or a horse that doesn't want you touching them there, you've got to earn that trust. But it's really huge, finding where your horse, your little baby, likes to be scratched. And so this is another thing that is real. And a lot of people don't talk about this as a professional. I do, and I do talk about it a lot, is 2 things, you guys. If you can't find a scratchy or an itchy spot on your horse, they have trust issues, bottom line. If you can't touch your horse's muzzle or kiss them or blow in their nose, they have trust issues, intimacy issues, bonding issues, bottom line. And the third thing, if you can't put your hand under their tail and lift their tail easily and scratch under their tail and all around their anus, they have trust issues, intimacy issues, and bonding issues. And so one of the things when I'm assessing a new horse and I get to a point where I have permission to come into their space and touch them, these are the things I'm looking for. Can I blow in your nose? Can I touch your face? Number 1. Can I get in your blind spot? Can I put my arm and my hand over your withers and your back? And can I move to your first chakra, the base of your spine, which is your tail? And do they clamp it shut? So as I always say, a tight tail is a tight mind. The horse does not trust you. And in the work that I teach, and my students know this because a lot of you are on this live podcast right now, all of a sudden you're doing this work, especially working with energy and the chakras and developing this level of intimacy and connection, and your horse starts giving you their butt. Like all of a sudden they're throwing their first chakra, on you, or slamming you with their hips, oh, can you rub, and can you get down here and under my udders or my sheath? And all of a sudden you're scared because you went from a horse not trusting you and working on all this, developing this level of relationship and trust, to them starting to offer those very intimate areas. So that's just something to keep in mind. So baby horses, if the baby horse is open and feels safe, it's going to allow you to touch it anywhere naturally and scratch it. And you'll see them just go nuts with that. They'll be throwing their body all over you. A lot of people, a lot of my students that have young horses get really scared of all of this because they're told, don't let the horse in your space. Don't let them, hold on for 1 second. Don't let them crowd you. That's disrespectful. And it's sick. It's absolutely sickening when I hear this, because these young horses need it. And you are blessed if your young horse at any age or older horse throws themselves at you and is open. Oh my God. Yes, Lydia.
So I was raising alpine goats, breeding and raising alpine goats for a while. And the same thing I realized happened when I was there to deliver those goats, the babies. If I instantly held them on the ground, as soon as mom dropped a baby, I helped start cleaning it up, and it knows me in that first 4 seconds. Well, there's a couple babies I couldn't get to in that first 4 seconds. And months later, it was completely two different animals. Like the one that I had groomed and helped clean up with mama and to introduce the nipple was really bonded to me. And the other one I had to spend a lot more time getting to know later. And I let my alpine moms raise my goats because I wanted them to be goats, pack goats.
Yep.
So I really wanted them to have both experiences. And if I didn't introduce that particular baby that I didn't bond with right away, to children, an infant, every size of human being, it still might have issues with everybody else later. And after I sold my 2 girls, she now cannot get those 2 girls because I raised them by myself with their moms. She can't get those girls to accept her children. They headbutt her children.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it goes deep. I want to say it starts the minute they hit the ground. That was my point here. Okay, I'm done.
Yep. Yeah, no. And you and I talked briefly about this the other day. Now I've raised a lot of kittens, and that's why we handle puppies, especially right away. And kittens, I've seen that with kittens. If you don't handle them right away, especially if let's say the mom's feral, but the mom gives birth and the kittens don't know any different. If you can get to those kittens, you can pretty much, what's the word I want to say? Not just socialize them, but imprint them. But it's still really tough because they learn so much from their mother. So even in that environment, but horses, like I said, I've not bred horses. I have not ever had a baby, a dam give birth and had the baby. I've only either adopted or bought foals. And the research that I've done and in the little videos I've seen here and there, I'm not sure what that is, like I just read, if the mother is apprehensive of people, then the baby, for the most part, not always, the baby is going to be apprehensive. It's going to learn just about everything from the mom. But I don't know if that's the same, like you said, with goats, with baby horses, that if you're not there when the baby drops and touching the baby and helping the mom with the baby, I don't really think, I haven't read anything or seen anything.
I think it helps if you could be there and you can help.
Definitely.
And they get that smell. I get the placenta all over me. They're licking my coat.
Yes, makes sense. Makes total sense. It makes logical
from the beginning. Yeah.
That's logical. Unfortunately, so many of us can't, we don't have access to imprinting the baby when it's born. We just end up getting, the baby and whatever it comes with, whatever issues it comes with. But yeah, just getting back to some basic practices. That is an excellent point. Just something to definitely think about. And, like I said, I get really irritated. It really bothers me because so many professionals out there with young horses are telling you not to touch them, not to, and the babies are babies. I mean, that's why pecking order is so important. Now, the difference between fillies and colts, filly being a baby girl and a colt being a baby boy, is it's hardwired in colts with their testosterone to play rough and to play fight like stallion, to teach them how. Now that's a real big deal with colts. Okay. Pecking order is huge because that's going to set them up for success as stallions with their own herds. You won't see fillies play like that. They'll run and they'll jump, but they're girls. They're softer. They're more into grooming and socializing. Now you'll see geldings that'll groom like crazy too. But remember, stallions, stallions are stallions. It's a little bit different. And so it's just really important, let's get back to, because this is like the number one problem that I've received from so many people over the years, is I have this weanling or this yearling and it doesn't respect space, Caroline, and yet I want to love on it. And so one of the most important things that a dam, its mom, and a healthy herd will do is teach these types of behaviors. What's accepted behavior is what I call it, or what's not accepted. And it's really important to socialized species like horses that you have discipline and you have social order and social management. It's absolutely necessary to their survival, because the common sense of it is if you're a wild band of horses and there's too much crazy displaced anxieties, which there aren't, or fighting other than stallions, it takes away, it's a distraction, and it takes away from their ability to hone into their environment and pay attention to real threats and predators. I mean, that's just the common sense of it. You will see every wild herd is quiet, minus the stallions fighting. That's it. Bottom line, they're quiet because they're passive by nature. They all want to get along. They're trying to conserve their energy, so you're not going to see all this craziness. And it's hard for people we've normalized it because our domesticated horses are such head cases, we've normalized so many of these behaviors. It is just mind-boggling to me. And we can change it, we can change it. That's the key. And so you want your baby to learn how to respect your space. That is for sure, but you want them in your space. That's part of the bonding as a big deal. So you've got to learn how to appropriately teach them to be mindful of you, that they can't rear up on you and play with you, that play has to be different between the two of you, because play is important, but it has to be different. When Blue first came here, I had one of those big balls. I've had a bunch of different sizes, but I had one of those big horse balls. And he went after it right away. Went after the jolly balls. He went after the smaller, kind of like a yoga ball that we had outside, and he went after the big ball. And excuse me, he blew the big balls. He just kept popping them. It was just, he didn't have anybody to play with. So I was what can I do? Mason and I, my stepson and I taught Mason how to play with him as a baby, but be really safe, because the babies are going to kick out, don't get next to the hind end. If he's going to learn how to chase you, make sure you have trees so that you can hide behind a tree, get around a tree to protect you, because it's a baby. But most importantly, before we started to play with Blue had to learn how to respect our space. That was number one. And so when the hands came up, or, your energy came up, Blue understood that was go the other way or stop, do not plow through me, which is normal for babies. And it's like every year up until 3 or 4, they're going to keep testing those boundaries, just like kids do. And it's not pecking order at that point. Pecking order, in a natural herd environment for young horses only exists as weanlings. Okay, they figure it out by the time they're yearlings, but we normalize it. Oh, he keeps testing me. He keeps, it's a pecking order. And yeah, he's going to test you, because that's what teenagers do. Humans, puppies, horses, they do test you. So you've got to, number one thing is teach these horses to respect your space, and teach them how to be mindful when they come into your space, which is asking a question. And you can teach this very easily and quickly with these young weanlings. So as I was saying, for the baby, since Blue didn't have any young horses here, he had all these older horses, what can I give him because he was very playful and very mouthy, and he was a boy. he learned right away that he could not, rear up and go after and be real demonstrative, because the older geldings would put him in his place. Legend, who was the oldest, would play with him and tease him, and Blue would bite his tail and hold on to it, and Legend would squeal, and then he'd spin around, and then he'd back into him and give him his tail again. So Legend was amazing at playing with him, but then letting him know, hey, you bit too hard. And Legend was a little crippled, so he couldn't really kick at Blue, but he could butt him. But then Sundance came in and helped, or Smokey was still alive at the time. So it's just really beautiful when you have a healthy dynamic. And then if you don't, what can you do to give this baby, if it's a boy especially, things to play with? And if it's a girl, she's going to want things a little different. They all want bonding. They all want rubs. They all want scratches. They all want touch. That's so important to their cognitive and emotional development, period. And again, I can't emphasize Mete's videos, youtube.com/the @ Lizzie's horses, because you're going to see it. You're going to see such a beautiful, gentle, natural, organic, loving way of habituating these young horses, getting the young horse habituated, experienced and used to, anything and everything that could spook it or might scare its mom or the other herd members. This isn't desensitizing. This is what we call natural habituation, and sensitizing, actually, not desensitizing. And so you get to see Frigga, the mom or the other horses might have been a little more cautious with the bag, and the baby's like, do I need to be cautious? But then if you just allow the baby to find its own courage, to explore that thing and figure it out on its own, it's just beautiful. And the baby it had all sorts of obstacles that would scare Blue, my horse. But this baby, became its natural environment. And the other horses weren't afraid either. So that helped tremendously. So as I said earlier, foals will naturally wean themselves between 1 and 2 years. And if I was raising the mom and the baby, I would allow it to take its own course. And if it lasted longer, then I would be asking some questions like, why? Is there something missing nutritionally or emotionally? And a lot of my students do have moms and babies, and they want to know, like, when do I start working with the mom? Well, you can continue to work with the mom. That's a great thing to do, because the baby's going to learn through association. So one particular student, the mother was afraid of a lot of things, including humans, and yet the baby wasn't. So that's where it's not always, the rule. Sometimes these babies have more courage and confidence, and they don't feed off the mom all the time. They're not insecure. And Lydia brought up Blue's, Blue. I had to take Blue to University of Florida's dermatology unit, very expensive to get tested. And as I say, he's allergic to air. I mean, he's allergic to everything. He was. So he was breaking out in hives and abscesses, and oh my God, as a baby. And so around the age of, I think it was 1.5 years old, I'm like, okay, I've tried everything my vet said, but my vet doesn't specialize in skin disorders. So she recommended the University of Florida. He got tested and he got a shot. I was supposed to bring him back every year. And I haven't. He's 5 now. So, or he might have went when he was 2, because he's out. Yeah, he's a lot better. So that's why you've seen a lot of his videos, his tail's all rubbed down. He doesn't have a tail anymore. It was horrible. He was just peppered with skin sores and, it just allergic to everything. So right now he's eating, he's eating all the things he couldn't eat before. So I don't have to be real particular about his hay. But, he definitely does have some allergies, but a lot of that was emotional too. And I was hoping, as I started to develop him slowly and in stages each year, that some of that would start to go away, because he was just so emotionally imbalanced. And I've also given him a lot of other types of supplements to help his chi and balance himself out. And it all works, you guys. I mean, there's a lot to consider, but allergies, just like getting sick all the time, you know,
Yeah,
you have an
stress.
immune deficiency and stress. Oh my gosh, this poor baby. What a
When if you're
handful.
raised in a stressful environment, your immune system is going to take a long time to fix itself.
Yep, it absolutely. Very good point. Um, so again, like I said, most breeders wean the babies way too early because they want to avoid financial losses. It's about the money, not the horse's welfare. And yeah, I think I covered a lot. I mean, I don't want to get into all these case studies. If anybody's interested in the 8 pages that I collected, just email me personally, Caroline@taoofhorsemanship.com, and it's got the links and everything. I pretty much covered everything. But the case studies are sometimes really fun for a lot of people and just supports what we're talking about. And yeah, I mean, mostly I'm speaking to people that, you know, either buy or adopt or rescue weanlings and you don't know what you're getting. And so if you have a young horse that, again, doesn't let you touch their face or their 8th chakra or their 1st chakra, you know, their tail, you know, they have trust issues. And because those of us that have had baby horses and they're healthy, they can't wait for you to touch them, and they're rubbing all over you and throwing their bodies into you, and you can do anything. I mean, it's a shame. You can lift their feet. They have to learn how to stand, but they shouldn't learn how to stand perfect at the age of 6 months. That doesn't make any sense. It's a baby. It can only take in so much information. They're quick learners. They're like sponges, but you can't drill stuff with them no more than you could a young child. And so it's really about creating good habits through consistency, repetition, and reward. Those are the 3 secrets to success with horses and developing really healthy horses holistically yes.
And they will never, ever forget the first time you made them afraid.
Oh,
They will never forget the first time that you made them afraid. So
their
what
memories are like elephants.
get your shit together, and figure out what makes horses afraid, babies afraid.
Oh, yeah. Look at my videos of Blue.
Yeah.
Look at Blue. Blue, out of nowhere, Blue became petrified of plastic bags and tarps. Well, guess who we learned that from? Lovey, especially. And so it took years for me, and I'm not into desensitizing. I'm not into flooding him. I wanted him to outgrow it holistically. But yeah, I mean, the damage is done. We're still working on it, but he is so much better.
And so subtle.
Yeah.
Subtle.
Oh my God. I had no idea, you guys.
Remember Carl Fiddle story? Like I told you about Fiddle, and he needed his foot picked up because he had cut himself on the gate. And Carl went at him like he would at one of his older horses, didn't look at Fiddle, just went straight for the foot and picked it up. And then for the next year and a half, we could not pick up Fiddle's foot without a fight. He didn't forget it.
That's how it happens.
He is now 5. So now we can pick up his feet. So if you want a challenge, think about that. Like it can be that subtle to pick up your horse's foot without permission or a warning, and you're going to have him afraid of that.
Yep, perfect point. That's an excellent point. And that's another thing that so many people have trouble with. My young horse won't stand. My young horse won't pick up their feet. They now are afraid of the farrier. It's huge. And that's because of that exact example you gave. The farrier doesn't care. He's coming in to do his job. He expects you to do your work, or he's just an ass and expects this young horse to know everything. And that puts so much pressure on you and the young horse. I mean, it comes in stages. When Blue was little, and I've had him since he was 8 months old, he would pick up his feet for you. He was more defensive with the hind end. So you don't hang on to the hind end and you don't put ropes around him. It just takes time for him. It takes consistency, repetition, and positive experiences that will soon replace. Now, if it's an extreme case, and he had his extreme case with the bag and the round pen, and all that videos on YouTube or in my library now, then you've got to handle it. But you need to know what you're doing. But just with just, so many times we try to force these young babies into doing something that an older horse is just ready and more mature to handle, and they have more experience. And that's a great point, Lydia. Make sure that everything your baby experiences is the best experience it can be, because that's what it's going to remember. And in a young mind, it's harder for a young mind to comprehend and let go than an older horse. It's like you can make those mistakes with an older horse and they're like, okay, now maybe that's just a mistake. I'm still going to be
That's
afraid, but I'm
not.
yeah. So yeah, I know I've got experience with this before, but a young horse, it's so much more detrimental. That's an excellent point. Yeah, that's an excellent point. All right. Well, I know you. Anybody? Yes, Becky, Clint. Yeah. I love when my girls and boys will lift their legs and show me when they need me to clean their private parts. I love it.
It gets so bad that you can't have their head because they want you to rub their belly, and I'm like, no, I want your head. Come here. No, rub my belly.
I love it. And I love when our horses feel safe enough and trust us enough to tell us, express themselves, what they need, and show us what they need. It doesn't happen all the time, and sometimes, but when you have a baby horse, a young horse that's willingly giving you all of that information, God, you want to keep it. But just know that if your horse doesn't offer up all of this, that there are problems. These are the things I look for. Like I said, do they let me touch them? Do they have itchy spots that they want scratched? Do they really, move when you're scratching them? Do they give? Do they, where are they? Because if you've never experienced this, you don't know what it should look like. So I'm trying to explain it. I mean, they should, if you've never experienced horses grooming each other and really getting into it and moving all around each other so they can each get to each other's spots and showing each other where they want it. Your horse is going to do the same with you. And so often we're told, don't let them in, they're going to step on you. And yeah, they might step on your foot. Push them off. I mean, come on, this is all part of that. Let's get in there and really groom each other. This is so important. To becoming accepted as a family member, and your horse considering you and being mindful and thoughtful and in the moment. And it's just, you gotta have that. All right, Lydia, what else do you want to add, my dear?
I'm not sure I can think of anything else.
Does anybody have any questions?
I think another thing to remember about handling, and it's really true with birds and small mammals, so it should be with the large mammal, a goat or a horse, is that initially when they're young, how you hold them, like hug them early so they know what that feels like, especially horses, the neck and the head area, because it's their flight zone. And I would focus on really manning. In falconry, we call it manning, where
and trusting.
a wild falcon is going to take me a month for my hand to even touch the breast. I can maybe touch the foot while they're eating and pulling meat off of a carcass, but I have to be respectful on how quickly I introduce myself to certain areas of their body. So that's the other thing that I did make a note about, would be to, the worst thing that can happen to us is for us to get knocked in the head by a horse's head.
Yes. Or a foot or a paw, because often when you start hugging, they're going to try and hug you back. So they either hug you by putting you underneath their chin and against their chest, or their leg will come wrapped around. That's beautiful points. Thank you. And I do want to mention training a little bit. Everything should be habitual and organic with young horses. Nothing should be forced. Nothing should be fast. If you've got a 5 or 6 month old that you need, obviously it's going to have a halter on it. It should have been halter trained, but God knows what that was like. But don't expect so much. Do little things often. This is where the consistency and repetition and reward comes in. So you don't want to just spend a large amount of time, several days a week, because you're going to blow their mind. You're going to fry them. They can't comprehend all of that. And they're going to be rambunctious. You've got to allow for this. You've got to allow them to be a young horse. You just have to teach them to be a young horse with you, and that you can play, but you got to play out there, or you can come running and run around me, but you know, we've got to keep our distance so I don't get kicked in the head by accident. And you know, leading is important for them to understand. And there's so many ways you can teach a young horse to lead, but it doesn't have to be forced. And you know, the biggest point I'm trying to make with Mete's videos is when you raise a young horse yourself and you do it correctly, you won't have any problems. I can't emphasize that enough. Horses are oppositional by nature. You got to understand some of their instincts. That means that when you put pressure around their flight zone, their poll, their face, they're going to push into it or away from it. That is a natural instinct for horses. So that means if they got attacked by a predator, they're either going to push into the predator to squash them, to kill them by squashing them, throwing their body down on them. How many of you have ever seen horses, adult horses, chase dogs to crush them? This is a natural instinct until the horse gets familiar. Yeah, sometimes it shouldn't be play. You know, that's just their natural instinct to slam that dog and crush them. And the other one obviously is to flee, to pull away. So you have to allow for all these things. I see so many accidents happen and so much manhandling by feeling like when the baby pulls away from us, we've got to go after them and punish them or force them so they can't. You know, they're just know that they're gonna do it. You just don't want it to become a habit. So how do you, where's that feel timing? Yes.
Yeah, and flight genetics say I only run so far and so fast for so long, whether it's a bird or a mammal. Yeah, I can only run for so fast, for so far, for so long. So we don't really need to chase it down anyway. We just can't go 2 miles like the horse can, right? So
yeah,
we
well,
want to work within a closed space.
Yeah, because I've had Blue, you know, I forgot, and I'm sending Blue through a gate and the horses are on the other side, and somebody starts to run and Blue forgets he's attached to me years ago on the lead rope, and he starts taking off. So he's dragging me. I'm on my feet. You know, basically I feel like I'm moonwalking because I'm like lifted in the air because he forgot he was attached to me. So that is not that there's no punishment should happen. He just has to be, you have to do a better job. I had to do a better job reminding him before we got out into the open, you know, and it's going to happen because he's not in an enclosed space and I'm leading him from the barn to the field, you know, that, hey, remember, you're on the line with me. And this means you need to consider me. But he did because of that experience, and he did not get away from me. But because of that experience, he thought he could do it again. So that's where I had to nip it in the butt, so to speak, no pun intended, to say, hey, bite on the butt with a whip. No, that's not going to be a habit. You know, one time was a mistake, but you cannot think when you know you're on this lead rope. But that was it. It was just one bite. He was like, oh, what did I do wrong? Or it was a little more. Now, a really healthy young baby that isn't afraid of anything would just be like, oh, okay. But Blue was such a stressed out little youngster. And like I said, his human mom did some damage to him to try to get him ready. She ran the hell out of him in a round pen. She did all the wrong things, you guys. So he had a lot of damage. But I guess I'm just trying to let you guys know that there's so much you can do by interacting with your young weanling every day. You can reinforce good habits just by the way you act, you know, between respect for space, letting them into your space, steady pressure with your fingers, you know, rhythmic pressure, getting them used to some more natural ways like their mom, you know, would, you know, your own energy. If mom's going to pin her ears and take a bite, she's given plenty of warning, and that energy is there to support the action. So one of the things you don't want to do is just go after them because you're going to scare them. You know, you got to think like the horse a little bit.
Exactly. That's what I was just going to say. Don't forget to see things the way the horse does.
Yeah, try to. And there's so much stuff on YouTube these days, you know, to look up, and you can always contact me for a coaching call. And submit a video. And I think that pretty much wraps up everything. Question from
The rescue.
The rescue I'm currently treating decided to have a blowout over a spray bottle and is now entrusting. Unfortunately, I'm trying to battle to manage the rain rot and ringworm. Well, I'll answer that, but I also offer a course, a lifetime access to one of my courses called Retraining the Challenged Young Horse. Blue's on there, and so is one of Blue's buddies that was born at the same time. And there's a third horse, and we have a whole series on the spray bottle.
I think there's a YouTube video on the spray bottle as well, a little bit
There
of
might
one.
be.
A teaser. Yeah.
So don't make anything your young horse, older horse, it doesn't even matter. Anything they're afraid of is information. So now you have to figure out, how can I change that experience for them? It's always an experience. So how can I change that experience? Let me just turn my phone off there. And so for me, there's a lot of factors considered. And one of them, the first factor is how you approach it. So the energy of your intention, your mindset, and the energy of your heart. So relationships got to be there as much as you can build that bond so that the horse looks forward to your voice, your touch, your smile, being with you. It's got to be number one. Once that happens and the horse starts to respond to being with you, then you start reintroducing the scary thing. And so you'll go, hey, look at this spray bottle full of water. So we don't waste this fly spray. And you're going to use a lot of it. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. In my mouth. Like Lydia said, oh, wow, here it is. It's part of me. So maybe the spray bottle just becomes nonchalantly part of your grooming box, and it's just there. You're not even going to spray them. It's there for a few days or a week or two. Then all of a sudden you're just spraying yourself down with it, spraying another horse because they learn from example. And then you go, okay, it's your turn. And this is where I will hold them. I'll never tie them. And I will move with them. So if they still aren't, like, oh, curious, because you're looking for curiosity. If you can't create that level of curiosity, or at least they don't keep their feet still because they trust you enough to be okay. If they start moving, go with them. Go with them. Don't hold them. Go with them and say, okay, I love you, but here you go. I'm just going to start squirting you. Just going. I'm not going to start at the feet. I'm not going to squirt their face, but I'm just going to start squirting their shoulder and their neck. And I'm going to go, it's okay, I love you. And I might do this in a stall, as long as I feel that they're not going to run through me or it's a safe space. But you're going to keep spraying them until they stop. And then you keep spraying them just a little bit longer until they relax. And if they don't relax but stop, you stop. Love you, I love you, I love you. Oh, I love you. Put it down. God, that's great. Let me rub you. I don't care if it takes 10 minutes until you exhale, release, relax, horse, lick and chew. And then here we go again. So it's not desensitizing, and we're not about flooding. We're here to change the experience. And just because we're going to go again doesn't mean we're going to do as much. We might do a little bit less because we're looking for a really good place to stop. In my experience, it's only taken one session, and it hasn't taken very long. But the horse might back up 20 feet. What I don't want is that the horse feels it has to run through me. You don't want the horse to be defensive. And so that's why it can be dangerous, and you really need to make sure you've got a really good relationship with the horse. And unfortunately, rescue horses have a lot of damage.
Yep.
Most of horses do, period. But that's a way to go about it, is just we bring in our own energy and intention. We add to it. As I call it, we feed to the horse's anxiety. We feed into it. It's no different than your friend being really upset and you coming in and going, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Okay, you want to talk about it. And you just keep re-triggering it. There's a point where you want to be compassionate, empathetic, and understanding. But if you don't shut up or stop with that energy, then you are literally re-triggering the person or the horse. You're feeding into it. You're adding to it. So what are you bringing to this experience? How can you change this experience? And there's always the balance of love and leadership. There's always like, hey, I am not judging you. There's never any punishment. I love you. You express yourself to a point, but if it starts to get unhealthy, you've got to figure out, when do you shut it down? When do you interrupt it? When do you redirect it? So, there's a lot to think about. You got to be safe.
You need a course to help you.
Yeah, I've got the course for it, and with a ton of strategies. That's a great question, though. So that's about, yes, you're part of my mastering membership, and we had a coaching call a while ago on your young filly finding an open arena. So, and she starts running towards the open pen. Well, that's where you've got to look at a lot of my problem solving in course number 3, because this is where you've got to teach her, like Blue's like, oh, we just went through the gate and they started to run. Well, I'm running. So that was just a mistake on his part. I didn't know it was going to happen. I could let go of the rope. I didn't. I spun her around, and then I just redirected it. The second time he learned that he thought he could do that again. And sometimes you just have to wait. So I was prepared, and I had the lead rope shorter with the rest of it dragging so that it could drift out of my hand a little bit. So I didn't get pulled all over the place or a rope burn, but then I had the whip ready, and I bit his butt pretty hard. So he spun around. Sometimes they'll flip out over that, and it'll actually escalate. So this is why you've got to do a lot of the prior work, the prior preparation. And I think we mentioned that in our coaching call the last time. You've got to work in a smaller space, whether it's a stall or 2 corners of a fence or an enclosed area or a round pen, where you can start teaching the horse to pay more attention, to be more focused, to start to be more disciplined, and to respond and respect being on a lead rope. And then you're taking it out and testing it. And so if you take it out and it doesn't work at all, but it worked great in that small space, then you're still going to do it in a small space, but you're going to ask for more. You're going to be more particular. Like, that's where the 3-second rule comes in. And it's a young horse. Sometimes this is just you and the young horse. I'm not saying that the horse isn't testing you. They can read you. And if you're intimidated or lack confidence, it's definitely going to add to that experience in a negative way.
Me, I taught my baby I taught my baby most all of your lessons, and he chose the half circle for his go-to. Like, when shit goes wrong, he goes 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock and looks at me like, can we do the half circle? Like,
Yes, that makes him feel good. He likes that. That is so cute. He's so smart.
He picked the exercise that made him feel good. And I let him have it. And so
that's beautiful.
Whenever anything goes wrong anywhere, if it's next to a river or whatever, that's going to be our go-to. Get off, and we'll do the half circle here until you can find your breath.
Self-regulate.
And then we'll
self-regulate. Yep, I love it. God, he's smart. Thank you for that. Bridget, real quick, you said, yes, Bridget, another student. Bridget, that's a tough question. When you board your horse with someone else and they don't handle your horse, or the environment that your horse is in is creating a lot of stress because it's a stressful environment, you have to listen to your horse. And I hate to say this, but you got to get him out of there. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. A lot of my students board their horses and they can't get them out of there. And a lot of them jump from facility to facility because it's that stressful. So the environment is so important, you guys, because they live in that environment 23, 24 hours a day versus seeing you and being with you. So it's going to be so counterproductive to what you're doing, because their nervous system is just being absolutely ravaged. So just think, if they're on adrenaline all the time, or they're defensive, which is adrenaline, or they're anxious, which is adrenaline, that's what you don't want, because then they're living in their sympathetic nervous system, which is self-preservation mode. And so if they can't relax and feel safe where they're at, and part of that is not just the environment being stressful, but the way they're being handled is stressful. It's not the same. Does the person have a lot of stress that they're carrying, that energy? Are they handling your horse crappy? Are they mean to your horse? Are there things going on that you don't know? You know, they could be hitting your horse one time, manhandling your horse, you know, scream. It just takes that one time of a bam or a bam or a knock it off. And your horse is like, wait a minute, I'm not used to this, you know, and now they're going to be totally worried all the time. Where's it coming from? When's it going to happen next? That's the horrible reality. What, hon?
It can be a shiny object in the barn that they can't get used to.
It can be anything that disrupts their nervous system, and it shouldn't be. I mean, that tells me something else might be going on. But you know, like I said, yeah, you never know. But I most of the time, it's usually a very stressful environment. Either the horses are stressed, maybe it's not the person, maybe it's, you know, it's the handler, but it could be somebody else in the barn. You just never know. I don't know how big your but yeah, they could be spooked. That's what Lydia's talking about. You know, my horses, 2 out of 3, Sundance and Smokey, were petrified of pigs. So we moved down here to Florida. We had wild boar, which they would catch scent of. And then one of the boarding facilities raised pigs to butcher. Legend thought they were amusing. So I was like, oh God, please, Legend. He would just drag me to go see them. And Smokey and Sundance were dragging me the other way. And so just those kinds of things just keep them on, you know, they can smell it, they can feel it. Plus the butchering, animals being butchered. Are you kidding? My horses were like, there's been many a time we've been trail riding over the years, and they obviously their senses will catch a dead animal carcass somewhere on our trail ride, and they can smell it. And as soon as they would plant their feet, I knew they sensed something was going on. Just follow what they were looking at, or their ears were like radars. And sure enough, if we had to go towards that dead animal because it was on our path, most of the time I had to get off. And then there was the dead carcass. And yeah, that's their instincts kicking in. Now, that tells me that we still need more work to do, though, right? That they need to trust me, or at least trust that together we can handle that experience. And it's also experience. They need more experience knowing that that dead animal doesn't mean they're going to die. But yeah, that's a loaded question, Bridget. And I'm sorry. Your baby boy, you got to get him out of that. And if you can't get him out of it right away, there's only so much you can do. Spend more time with him, hand grazing him. Even if you're doing the work in the big program of mine, and he may be able to do the work well and get self-regulated, rhythmic and relaxed in the work. But then as soon as he's back in that environment, he's re-triggered again. Or as soon as he's back in his stall or the pasture or with that person, it's really tough. A lot of people ask me, you know, I lease a horse. Can I start your method with that horse? And it all depends on who else is leasing the horse and what's their energy like. If it's a really beautiful, sweet, you know, kind person, then it shouldn't interrupt what you're doing. But if you've got somebody that's opposing who you are and what you're doing, then you've got opposing, conflicting, you know, energies.
Not any different than you and I raising our dog together, but different. Like my husband letting Tallulah get away with something and I don't.
Yes. Oh yeah, that creates confusion. And you know, horses are followers by nature, you guys. That's another thing. It doesn't mean they want to, they're always looking to feel safe. And so if your horse can't connect with other horses that help him feel safe, he's going to need to connect with you. And if he can't connect with you or the other horses, and he's got this person handling him, think how that just messes with them, because they don't feel safe. And safety is their highest hierarchy of need. And it's an emotional safety. It's not just that he has to feel safe physically, it's that the physical safety emotionally helps him feel safe. All right, well, I've got to wrap this up. I've got another call at 2:00, a Zoom meeting call. Thank you. This has been great. I hope I touched on some really important stuff about babies.
It's baby season.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lydia. Yeah, that's a good point.
It's baby season, so I'm going to end with this. make sure that you are willing to keep the commitment to your baby that you made when you bought it, found it, or rescued it.
Yeah. They need you. They need somebody to rely on. Absolutely. They need that bond. They need that leadership, that mentorship until they're ready to start making their own decisions. And that's where the
Until they're
partnership.
adults, people,
Yeah.
until they're adults.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Beautiful. Well, hopefully in a couple of weeks, not hopefully, I forget which date we chose, Lydia. I'm going to be interviewing Lydia.
26th.
26, cool. So that'll be our next podcast. And I'm not sure what the title is yet, but Lydia's been doing a ton of cool, just learning and studying and researching. And I just can't wait to pick her brain. And you guys are going to find it, because some of the stuff she's been telling me is so fascinating. It'll add to all of our learning about ourselves and horses. You know, it's all, you know, similar. So I'm excited. So we'll get that title out hopefully this week.
I haven't thought of it either yet.
Yeah, I know. Or next week, just so we can start. Yeah, we got a couple weeks. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy. May you always be one with your horse. God bless. Mwah. You know how to reach me. All right. Bye. Thank you, Lydia. Bye.